After a very tiring back and forth with Sega's marketing department over demo footage, the embargoes have finally been lifted, and with them, a floodgate of new footage for us to discover has arrived. The choice to try and stop recording the demo, only for pre-recorded footage to be released publicly a few days later, does raise some questions about if there was something Sega didn't want us to see, but that would be a topic for another video. In the demo gameplay, we get to see more of Sonic's combat capabilities, some of which look like they have been improved from before, whilst others are moves we never saw in the first place. One of the techniques we get to see Sonic use now that was only spoken of before is his parry. So one of the IGN hands-on interviews, you may have not seen it, but one of them talked about how there was a parry and that they used it to deflect enemy attacks. We see it here against what can be described as a spinning top weapon enemy. And yes, it's a spinning weapon, not the same one the IGN reviewer talked about, but Sonic took a pose, it came into contact with him, the player parried it, and it destroyed it in one hit. I don't know if parrying is always a destroy in one hit, or if it was just in this instance that enemy was either low on HP or it specifically dies in one hit. Not too sure about that, but parries are nice. It's a skill-based mechanic, you time it, you get a reward, it creates an opening, and you can design gameplay elements around it. But more interesting than that, to me, is when we get to see one of the other bosses of the game, this weird sort of sword-armed figure. And I have to say, it's animated spectacularly well. I've not been a fan of animations in the recent Sonic games, especially in titles like Forces. I feel like the characters just don't animate to the full extent of their physical forms, but this strange enemy, it definitely does. It has a very imposing walk, the way its arms move when it swings, it's very fluid, and it doesn't look as if it's struggling or fighting against itself to do so, especially when it does the flurry of swings as well. I think it's really good. Something it does do that raises my eye a bit is you see it attack cancel or begin an animation suggesting it's going to attack you, but then return to its normal one in a little bit of a janky way. And we saw one of those shell enemies do that in a previous trailer, which I also mentioned back then. I'm not sure about how I feel about that as a mechanic, because if it's to fake you out and trick you, then yeah, that's fine. But to me, it seems more as if the AI is just being allowed to cheat in a way where if you were a player and you were controlling that boss, I doubt it would let you cancel a move like that, but the AI can, if you see what I mean. It just comes off as a little bit cheap, but I'm not playing it. It could feel fine when you're playing the game, and it just works as a fake out. But anyway, this enemy gets to show off, I don't know what to call it, but Sonic can do this thing where he rotates behind an enemy. I'm assuming that's the player choosing to do that. And in terms of gameplay, that's good. It's very maneuverable, and so you can find some openings. But in terms of animation, Sonic literally just floats around the character. That's a bit weird. If it was on the ground, it would make more sense, but I know they want you to do it both on the ground and in the air, and there's probably not a great way around that, but I don't know, seeing him just float around in the air like that is a little bit strange. But the fight in general, the arena, the atmosphere, I love it. I think it's great. It's like a world mini-boss. I don't know if it's a real boss or not, but that is a good enemy in my opinion. I like that a lot. There was another boss that we got to see as well. I think it was called Tower, or the Tower, or something like that. And it's just this tall drill, weird construction looking device that Sonic gets to fight. And this one comes off more as a traditional type of boss compared to the one we just went over. But I mean that in a good way. So it starts up and it can shoot projectiles at you. It can move itself, reposition. It's got a sort of whirling blade that doesn't seem to actually hurt Sonic, and it's just used as defense to keep you off of him. And the way you destroy the boss is by destroying its segments bit by bit until you can hit the head. If you can hit the head sooner based on platforming, or maybe there's a skill you can get and it rewards you for timing it. I know in the arena you fight it near some slants, so maybe you could jump high. If it lets you destroy it early by reaching the top sooner, that will be a very rewarding boss structure. But that theory aside, it still looks like a pretty good fight. You understand how it works, it's got defensive options, repositioning, and more than one way of attacking you, and you have more than one way of avoiding and getting in. Definitely something you would want to see in a game that's talking about combat, which some of the previous entries didn't seem to suggest there were multiple ways to take them out. But that boss is another good one in my opinion. Besides the officially revealed demo footage, some of those snapshots people managed to take on their phones that we saw beforehand seem to show Sonic use what we're guessing was a spin dash. Hard to verify. It does look like it's a little bit too large to be a spin dash, but that just could be because the footage I've been able to look at is incredibly blurry. If that is in fact a spin dash, or I guess if it's something else, as long as it's Sonic himself, if you combine this with the mention of the Lightspeed Dash from IGN, this is all beginning to suggest that Sonic will in fact have a rather expansive moveset, which was something the earlier presentations really had me concerned was not the case, because the last thing you want is them to make a game where combats are more of a focus, but they don't give you enough tools, so you're just using the same ones over and over and over again, a bit like the homing attack in some games. But no, if we can start with a few and unlock even more, you've got the spin cycle, or the Psy loop I guess, Lightspeed Dash, your normal attacks, the weird thing where you go around the back and hit somebody, you can parry, maybe there's a bounce bracelet, we know there's a stomp. You add all of these things together and Sonic's starting to look like he's kind of fun to play. But this all begs the question, does combat even fit in with the Sonic series? It's all well and good that we're seeing a bunch of new moves and mechanics to support it, but it doesn't make it a perfect fit. Many people have complained about the use of the sword gameplay in Sonic and the Black Knight. Even if it's controlled in a very elegant way, that doesn't mean it would fit. Same things for people with guns in Shadow the Hedgehog. Some people say they like the gunplay and some don't, but what's more important is, did it need it in the first place? Now, my opinion is that as long as you make it entertaining enough and not a detriment, then I don't mind, and you might even win me over. Combat as we see here is most like the styles we've seen before with Sonic 06 and I guess Sonic Unleashed. With 06, they weren't transforming into any werewolves, they were just using their normal abilities that had a bit more of an expanded outlet. Sonic could homing attack, bounce bracelet, and slide kick, plus he had some attacks with the gems, but he was relatively simple in 06, whereas in Shadow's case for 06, he had a homing attack that let him do melee combos, he had a 3-stacked chaos meter that progressively gave him new moves, he could use chaos spears, he had a wide sweep kick, he had vehicles that had weapons, so he had a bigger moveset, which is ironically closer to what the Sonic in Frontiers appears to have rather than the Sonic did. So using that Shadow as a comparison, this Sonic does seem to have more, and even if we're talking about having upgradable power through the Chaos meter, Sonic here clearly has a skill tree that can upgrade his moves. We don't know to what extent the upgrades have an effect, but we know they exist. And Sonic has new abilities he's never been seen before, not just with the parry or the side loop, but even those wind kick energy blast things that no one really knows what that's about, but it looks good and he's got it. So Sonic's got the most combat options out of any Sonic game. Sonic Heroes obviously had a dedicated power character type of gameplay that let you break items and smash enemies, but a bit like Shadow in 06, they just had a singular attack combo and then they could do a projectile attack, and that was about it. It got upgraded 3 states, but not by much. People had mixed receptions to all of those previous games because of the elements that weren't platforming. That's been the case for Sonic Frontiers as well, but let's be honest, those early presentations did the game no favours in winning anyone over. Now that we've seen what the game has to offer, or at least more of it, my take on this is that the combat could be a great supplement. We've been told it's not 100% necessary, so if you're not a fan, you can probably just ignore it and still progress with the game. I'm someone that if the combat's good enough, will probably prefer to do that over the platforming. So I'm kind of looking forward to the idea of being able to fight my way to victory. Not to say that the platforming isn't something that interests me, but as someone who's always enjoyed the adventure style more than the boost style, obviously I'm not going to be as keen on that. We have not yet seen Cyberspace, and something that not many people have discussed is the idea that Cyberspace might still have some combat elements inside of it. Less likely for sure, but it is possible. Maybe they'll block you off until you beat all the enemies in a room or something like that. But is combat necessary for Sonic's gameplay? Obviously no, we've had tons of games without heavy combat, but can it work? This might be the first game to convince a large amount of people, but they need to get their marketing in check, because before recently it looked like they almost turned all of us away from the game. Very impressive, very impressive. Not everything to come out of these demos was positive though. Some of the people that got to play and make a review for it made note that the controls for Sonic looked better than they actually are, which is something obviously I can't confirm without playing, but I wouldn't rule it out. Another thing that was a little bit distressing was that when they were talking about the parrying mechanic, one of them mentioned that all you have to do is hold down 2 bumper buttons and Sonic will automatically parry anything that gets into his vicinity. If that's the way the parry works, it could undermine the entire combat system. A parry is strong, but it's strong because it's a skill to pull off and not easy. You have to time it and you have to know how to do it. If it's something where you just hold it down with no risk, no penalty, and Sonic will automatically get the best result whilst it's done, you have no reason not to do it all the time. And because a parry is supposed to be super critical to an enemy, and as we've seen, it destroyed the enemy in 1 hit, that means that enemies aren't going to be a challenge if you can parry them. I'm sure some of the bosses can't be parried, but for any enemy that can be, it will basically make them a waste of time. That would be a terrible decision. I don't know why they would do it that way. I've only seen it from one of the reviewers, so hopefully that is not the case. Or maybe there was an easy mode that he was playing on, no idea. But if they've done that, it could ruin the entire combat layer. Sonic Frontiers, the game that just keeps giving. I don't quite know what to expect at this point, so I suppose I'm just here for the ride. But how about you? What are your thoughts on everything we've discussed today? Are you interested in the combat? Is it going to win you over? Or are some of the rumours that it's not as good as it looks going to worry you? Let me know in the comments below. And I would like to thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video. Not many do, but those that can help me a lot by doing so. Furthermore, if you could like, subscribe and share this content, it would boost the video's performance and allow the conversation to grow. I hope you have a great day and to see you next time. This is the Mighty Emperor signing off.